Greetings, I am Blinky and today I am bringing you Lore Builder. This is an iteration of Build with Blinky and in this series we look at ships ranging from fighters to corvettes from various universes, be it the galaxy from long ago or a Kickstarter campaign reaching beyond the stars. Today we have arrived once more at the imperial side of the Star Wars galaxy. As the title card might have shown, today we built the Grand Inquisitors TIE Fighter, the TIE Advanced V1 prototype. This is, in Star Wars canon lore, the precursor to the TIE Advanced. We've all seen it in the original Star Wars. It was Darth Vader's personal craft, so it was very fitting that the writers of Star Wars Rebels did the late Supreme Bad Guy, the Grand Inquisitor, in one of these puppies. In my line of TIE Fighters, this one was easy to set up, yet hard to finalize. Being a build reliant on working rotors, we need to find some workarounds to make these S-foils look exactly right, not too heavy, and have also the exact scale we might see them in the series. Luckily I have access to a miniature of the fighter in the X-Wing miniatures games, and I could accurately measure the wingtips and their size related to the main body and wingspan, which is exactly the same as the normal TIE fighters. Being as wide and as high as the TIE fighters, I could reference my old ones for skill and see what I actually did wrong in my original TIE Advanced build, which I made a lot broader than the TIE fighters, so I will be redoing that in a future update. I decided for this build to start with the original skeleton for the TIE Advanced I made for the Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, keeping the placement of the fuel cells directly behind the cockpit. This also makes it easier to connect it, as the cockpit has a dual connector on the back, while the oxygen generators I'll be using for the hydrogen in this build have also a dual exit. This makes the fighter less viable for survival unless you are using the 10 times modifier for your fuel capacity and cargo capacity. This fighter is completely reliant on ice, hence are all the TIE fighters I built so far, as the original blue thrusters, I don't even know their name anymore, have completely phased out of any of my builds, as they just don't have enough power to actually fuel one of these small fighters with the amount of detail they have, with the heaviness of the blocks we still have, and the sheer size of the wings that are dead weight in essence. In lore, the S-foil suggests that it would make the TIE Advanced faster than regular crafts, like the TIE Fighter, as they have sloped wings and better solar panels. Yet they only retract when landing, giving it a clear advantage. In fact, that doesn't mean that the pilot needs to use docking clamps or a ladder to get out, which is nice. Also in Space Engineers, you don't have to take a long jump while this puppy is landed. In Space Engineers, having retracting wings means that both your build is clunky, you can't put thrusters there, but in the atmospheric drag mod, which I, for all my builds from now on, am using for planetary testing, it gives it the ability to actually fly on its side or forward, depending on if you're in landing mode or flying mode, of course. Noticeable is that in this TIE Fighter build, TIE Advanced build, it took a lot more time to build the whole thing due to the wings being such a complex entity inside the build. Of course, it's just a single rotor and that 4 times, and it's the same wing, but still that means that I have to account for space and the retracting aspect. The rest of the build, we have the canopy, we have the eyeball, let's say, from all my other TIE fighters. I've standardized that now to a certain degree, although these struts are different, slightly thicker, but thinner than the original TIE Advanced, making it look far sleeker and also more in line with the model with the extended struts. The hinges themselves are just a single rotor facing forward with a restriction of 10 and 70 degrees towards the inside of the vehicle. Having these wings bent inward from the get-go means that the overall look of the craft is rounder. So we don't need to address the fact that we can only build with blocks that have a 45 or 60 or 30 degree angle. The curvature, as you might later see, is very reflective of what we see in the series and what we see in the miniatures model from X-Wing. For the actual hinge section of the whole wing, which is the lateral part joining the whole wingspan, or the strut as some may call it, I'm using one side a blast door end and the other side is actually a more unconventional block. It's a end of the 2x1 slope, which I'm very happy Keen separated in hindsight. At first I thought, why would you make these slopes separate, but this is really helping with more detail and more creative builds in Space Engineers. I also did this technique with the sloped block and the blaster for the U-wing, which also has these wings that need to very tightly connect. Point need to address is the hinge, which is of course at a rotor and not at a blaster block, so we needed to make something work for that to overlap. At first I thought I kept the hole, but later on I discovered that the 2x1 point, the end piece, actually fits quite nicely over the whole area, and this also makes it so that it looks like one of the indentations for the hinges, which is an area on the TIE Advanced prototype which is reinforced for, well, I guess hinge purposes, making it so that when it is shot it doesn't fly off as easily as we normally see in some Space Engineers builds. So I will now skip forward to the end of this build, because there is no much than continuing to duplicate this area of practice and seeing that we need to adjust the rotors again, going inward, going outward, then overlapping it again, and finally of course grouping it. Alright, once on the planet I wanted to look at the lighting, where a lot of the model is actually the grayish white we see in the series, maybe sometimes a bluish tint, but I went for the color the X-Wing miniature has. And I came to the conclusion that the solar panels were an issue, because we can't really paint the inside of a block or the outside of a block, so I decided that the top could be done really quickly, because there's actually an inside block. The lower section I decided to just have it doubled, as normal TIE fighters also have this. Probably you will only notice when you're actually familiar with the model or see a reference and see, wait a second, there's something outside there. But do note, I noticed I tried solving it by adding a layer of armor tips, but this was looking too bulky and decided to not go with it. Same goes for the window panels. Like, it is 3 sections, 3 layers, but I finally went for just a single window on quotes, where we can slightly look outside the TIE Advanced cockpit. Perhaps later I will change these with the text panels to have an interface when you look up, which I also did for the front. I added a panel and a timer block, so you can actually use any script like the diagnostic script, so you will be able to see when you're getting shot, where you're getting shot, and if you're missing a wing or not. Well, I thank you all for watching. This was the TIE Advanced prototype from the Inquisitor, and I am Blinky, and I bid you all farewell. Please rate, comment, subscribe, go to the workshop and check out the vanilla builds I put there. I wish you all a good day, and till next time.